The film begins with an elderly woman on her deathbed in a hospital room. Outside, a fierce storm rages, adding to the somber atmosphere. Clearly in pain, the woman struggles to evident the woman is nearing the end of her life, as the nurse assures the daughter that her mother can receive as much pain medication as needed. The daughter has come to bid farewell, but there's a noticeable strain in their relationship. In a weak voice, the woman asks her daughter to retrieve a diary from her belongings and read it to her. The diary, resembling a journal, contains tickets and photographs pasted on its pages. As the daughter begins to read, the story of Benjamin Button unfolds. The story begins with Daisy, an elderly woman, reminiscing about a blind clockmaker who crafted a clock for New York's Grand Central Terminal. During its construction, the clockmaker's only son is sent to fight in World War I and tragically loses his life in battle. Despite his grief, the clockmaker completes his work. The unveiling of the clock becomes a grand event, attended by none other than President Theodore Roosevelt. However, when the clock is revealed, it astonishes the crowd. The second hand moves counterclockwise, and the clock measures time in reverse. The clockmaker explains that he designed it this way as a heartfelt wish for time to move backward, undoing the horrors of war and allowing fallen soldiers to return to their families. Not long after, the clockmaker closes his shop and disappears. The scene shifts as on the brink of death. A priest's presence, there to administer last rites, confirms the he approaches the crib, and though the attending nurse tries to warn him, he cries out in horror upon seeing his son for the first time. Overcome with despair, he grabs the baby and storms out of the house. Out in the streets, the baby wails as he runs aimlessly. Eventually, he stops at the riverbank, contemplating throwing the child into the water. Before he can act, a policeman intervenes and gives chase. Frantic, Benjamin's father flees and ends up at the porch of a large house. Hearing voices emerges from the house, playfully flirting and completely unaware of the baby on the porch. As they descend the stairs, one of them nearly trips over the infant. The woman, Queenie, picks up the baby, revealing that Benjamin has the appearance of an elderly infant. Despite her husband's protests, Queenie decides to take the baby in. She brings him into the house and places him in the top drawer of her dresser as a makeshift crib. When a doctor examines Benjamin, he informs Queenie that the baby suffers from arthritis, severe cataracts, and osteoporosis, ailments typical of someone in advanced old age. No one expects the baby to live for long. However, unable to have children of her own, Queenie believes Benjamin is a child of God and takes it upon herself to raise him. She names him Benjamin and introduces him to the elderly residents of the retirement home she manages, claiming he is her size of age, are surprisingly unfazed by Benjamin's unusual appearance. One elderly woman even comments that he resembles her ex-husband. Over the next few years, Benjamin grows up as a short, frail, bald elderly man with glasses, despite being only 5 years old. He affectionately calls Queenie Mama, and his mannerisms and impulses are unmistakably childlike. Though fully grown in size, Queenie continues to bathe him and scold him like a child whenever he tries to wander off. While Benjamin begins learning to read, he is unable to walk and remains confined to a wheelchair. One day, Queenie takes him to an evangelical healer. After curing Queenie's infertility, the preacher dramatically commands Benjamin to walk. During the intense healing session, Benjamin stumbles and, to everyone's astonishment, takes his first steps. However, in a shocking turn of events, the preacher collapses and dies moments later. Benjamin continues to progress physically, eventually learning to walk with the aid of crutches. During this time, he befriends a charismatic pygmy man, and the two bond over their shared sense of being different. One day, the pygmy takes Benjamin into town, where they spend time together. However, when the pygmy leaves to visit a prostitute, Benjamin misses the last streetcar and is forced to walk home on his crutches. Though Queenie greets him with a stern scolding for his late return, Benjamin cherishes the memory of his first taste of independence, recalling it as one of the best days of his life. Queenie hosts a party at the retirement home for visitors, and Benjamin, now walking without crutches, meets Daisy, the granddaughter of one of the tenants. Daisy is a striking red-haired girl with blue eyes. Benjamin and Daisy quickly develop a close bond. They often curl up together with Daisy's grandmother, listening as she reads them children's stories. Daisy soon notices that Benjamin is not an ordinary elderly man, recognizing his childlike demeanor and tendencies. The two spend a great deal of time together and, one night, sneak off to have a private conversation. However, they are caught by Daisy's grandmother, who misinterprets the situation and accuses Benjamin of having inappropriate intentions. Queenie tells Benjamin that he is no ordinary child, but rather a man-child, and warns him that others will misunderstand him. When Benjamin returns to his room, his elderly roommate shares that he has been struck by lightning 7 times. As the film progresses, the random and humorous circumstances surrounding each of his lightning strikes are gradually revealed. Benjamin begins to grow physically, gaining enough strength to bathe himself, and appears to be going through puberty, despite still looking elderly. His muscles become more toned, and his teeth begin to look healthier. While getting his hair cut by an elderly woman at Queenie's house, he comments that with each passing day, he feels himself growing younger. The woman responds that it must be sad to grow younger and watch the people you love pass away before you. As Benjamin reflects on her words, she adds that if we didn't lose the people we love, we wouldn't truly understand how important they are to us. Later, Benjamin reflects on the elderly tenants who died during their stay at the retirement home, recalling the valuable lessons they taught him. Benjamin visits the docks and, one day, offers to work for a tough tugboat captain named Captain Mike. Despite Benjamin's elderly appearance, Captain Mike agrees to take him on. Benjamin spends most of his time scrubbing the decks and doing light work, which excites him greatly. The two quickly form a strong friendship. During their conversation, Captain Mike discovers that Benjamin is still a virgin. Determined to change that, Captain Mike decides to take him to a brothel. While at the brothel, a drunken Captain Mike goes on a rant about being a self-proclaimed artist rather than following in his father's footsteps as a tugboat captain. He proceeds to undress, revealing his self-inked tattoos, as he is also a tattoo artist. He passionately talks about his hummingbird tattoo, describing it as a truly remarkable bird. Although Benjamin's appearance unsettles the prostitutes, one sympathetic woman reluctantly agrees to sleep with him. Displaying the youthful energy of a teenager, Benjamin exhorts her and promises to visit her every day except Sunday, her day off. As he is leaving, Benjamin notices his father exiting the brothel. His father instinctively recognizes Benjamin as his son. Benjamin's father, Thomas Button, offers him a ride home in his luxurious, chauffeur-driven car. Along the way, they stop at a bar where Benjamin has his first drink. The two drink and talk until the bar closes, after which Thomas drives Benjamin home. Upon returning, one day, Benjamin sneaks 9-year-old Daisy out for a ride on Captain Mike's tugboat. Still hungover from the previous night's drinking, Captain Mike reluctantly agrees to take them out to sea. As the tugboat passes a cruise ship, the captain waves to Benjamin and Daisy. Daisy comments on how she wishes she could be on a cruise ship like that. At around 17, Benjamin still appears as an older man but longs to leave home and work on Captain Mike's tugboat. Daisy, about 12 at the time, makes him promise to write to her from wherever he travels. As Benjamin journeys from harbor to harbor aboard the tugboat, we see Daisy grow up and pursue her dream of becoming a ballet dancer. During his travels, Benjamin forms a friendship with Elizabeth, an unhappily married Englishwoman. At the hotel where Benjamin is staying, he and Elizabeth spend nearly every night talking until dawn. She shares that, at 19, she attempted to swim the English Channel but gave up before finishing. Elizabeth introduces Benjamin to the finer things in life, such as caviar and vodka, and tells him about places he's never been, like Asia. Their connection deepens, and they eventually begin an affair, spending every night together. Benjamin writes to Daisy, confessing that he has fallen in love. However, one night, Elizabeth suddenly disappears, leaving behind only a brief, impersonal note saying it was nice to have met him. Captain Mike informs the crew that the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor and announces that he has contracted with the U.S. Navy to support the war effort. The cook decides to leave the crew to be with his wife, prompting Benjamin to take over as the cook. The tugboat experiences its first encounter with war when the crew arrives at the wreckage of a naval ship carrying soldiers that had just been bombed. The tugboat soon draws the attention of an enemy submarine, prompting the crew to take heroic action by deciding to ram the submarine and sink it. Gunfire erupts between the tugboat and the submarine, and eventually, the tugboat crashes into the submarine, successfully sinking it. However, the battle results in the deaths of Captain Mike and several crew members, who succumb to their wounds. Benjamin survives and later delivers Captain Mike's earnings to his wife. As he tosses the tugboat's lifesaver into the sea, a hummingbird emerges from it and flits past him. Benjamin reflects that he never saw a hummingbird in the open sea again. After returning to Queenie's house from the war, Benjamin now appears to be about 50 years old. Daisy, now around 20, makes a surprise visit. She initially doesn't recognize him, but after a brief reunion, they decide to go out on a date. During dinner, Daisy passionately talks about her love for dancing, barely giving Benjamin a chance to speak. Their evening ends at a romantic lake, where Daisy tries to seduce him by performing impressive ballet moves and sharing stories about her promiscuous life in the ballet company. However, Benjamin refuses to sleep with her, leaving Daisy disappointed. Benjamin's father, Thomas Button, reconnects with him, now walking with a crutch due to a foot infection and in declining health. He invites Benjamin to dinner and later takes him to see his Button factory. During their visit, Thomas reveals that he is Benjamin's father and shares photos of their family. Overwhelmed at first, Benjamin gradually understands that Thomas seeks reconciliation before his death. Thomas promises to leave everything to Benjamin. Before he passes away, Benjamin takes him to the lake to watch the sunrise, and both men find peace with their past. Benjamin later travels to New York to watch Daisy perform in a production of Carousel. He is deeply moved by her dancing, but Daisy is somewhat surprised to see him backstage. Declining his invitation to dinner, she instead invites him to join her and her dancer friends. Among the young crowd, Benjamin watches Daisy flirt with her new boyfriend and realizes how different their lives have become. Disheartened, he returns to Queenie's house. In the present, the dying Daisy tells her daughter that Benjamin had come to inform her of his father's death, but at 23, she was too caught up in her own world to truly pay attention. Daisy then shares photos of herself as a young dancer with the Bolshoi Ballet. Daisy's story reveals how much she has kept from her daughter. She reflects that, despite having many lovers in her youth, she always felt connected to Benjamin and thought about him. Meanwhile, the storm outside the hospital intensifies, and a news report confirms it is Hurricane Katrina. In the past, Daisy is dancing with a ballet company in Paris when a chain of events, narrated by Benjamin, leads to her being struck by a taxi. A friend wires the news to Benjamin, and he travels to Paris to see her. The accident crushed Daisy's right leg, ending her dancing career. Overcome with a mix of anger, pride, and shame, Daisy tells Benjamin to leave her alone. He complies, but as the diary reveals, Benjamin stayed in Paris for some time to watch over her from a distance. Reading from Benjamin's diary, Daisy's daughter discovers this for the first time, and Daisy begins to weep. Although Benjamin was deeply in love with Daisy, he admits in the diary to having slept with several women while in Paris. A few years later, Benjamin, now appearing about 40, is seen speeding on a motorcycle and wearing aviator sunglasses, resembling James Dean. Daisy, having recovered and able to walk again, visits Benjamin at Queenie's house. She asks him to sleep with her, and he immediately agrees. They visit the same lake where Benjamin once took his father, and as they watch the sunrise, Daisy promises to never indulge in self-pity again. The two begin traveling together, living on the sailboat Thomas Button left to Benjamin. When they return from their travels, they find Queenie's house empty and learn that she has passed away. They attend her funeral services, and afterward, Benjamin sells his father's house. He and Daisy buy a duplex and settle into life as a young couple in their 40s, spending their days together in their sparsely furnished apartment. They spend an entire day making love and watch the Beatles on American television for the first time. Renewing her passion for dance, Daisy opens a dance studio where she teaches young girls. One day, while dancing in front of a mirror, her old leg injury reminds her of her limitations. Despite this, Benjamin, pregnant. Months later, Benjamin voices his fear that the baby might inherit his condition, but Daisy reassures him, saying she would love the child even more if it did. Before they leave a diner one day, Benjamin sees Elizabeth on TV being celebrated as the oldest woman to swim the English Channel at 68 years old. Later, Daisy gives birth to a perfectly healthy baby girl, whom they name Caroline, after Benjamin's mother. In the present day, Caroline suddenly realizes, through reading the diary, that Benjamin is her biological father. Having grown up believing her stepfather was visibly upset, she leaves the room to smoke, only to be told by a nurse that smoking indoors is not allowed. Composing herself, Caroline returns and continues reading the diary. In the past, Benjamin becomes increasingly worried about his ability to care for Daisy and their child as he continues to grow younger. Daisy, ever optimistic, assures him that she can manage caring for both him and the baby. However, Benjamin remains unconvinced. He tells Daisy that such a life would eventually disappoint her and that their daughter deserves a father, not a playmate. Resolute, Benjamin decides that he wants Caroline to have a real father and plans to leave before she is old enough to remember him. As Daisy continues aging while Benjamin grows more youthful, she begins to worry that he is no longer attracted to her. After Caroline's first birthday, Benjamin sells his father's button factory, the sailboat, the summer cottage, and all his other assets. He leaves the money in a bank's safe deposit box for Daisy and Caroline before walking out the door. In the present, Daisy reveals to Caroline that shortly after Benjamin left, she met Caroline's stepfather. She admits Benjamin was right. She wasn't strong enough to raise both him and Caroline on her own. While Daisy doesn't know what Benjamin did during his absence, the diary reveals that he visited her one final time. At that point, Benjamin, now appearing around 23 years old, visits Daisy's dance studio one night. Daisy, now about 60, is startled by his return. He is youthful and strikingly handsome, while she has naturally aged. Benjamin meets his teenage daughter and Daisy's husband for the first time. While the husband and daughter wait in the parking lot, Benjamin and Daisy have a private conversation. Daisy explains that her husband is a widower and mentions that Caroline shares many of Benjamin's attributes. Daisy leaves with her family, but later that night, she visits Benjamin in his room. Despite feeling self-conscious about her aging body compared to Benjamin's youthful appearance, Daisy cannot suppress a desire to be with him. Benjamin's unwavering love for her is clear, and the two have a happy moment before Daisy bids a final goodbye. In the present, Caroline recalls a childhood visit from a mysterious stranger, who she now realizes was Benjamin. She then finds postcards in the diary from Benjamin, written to her on several of her birthdays. In each postcard, Benjamin expresses his deep regret for not being there during significant moments in her life, such as her first day of school and her first heartbreak. We then see Benjamin living through his 20s, drifting and traveling aimlessly. He wanders around India, takes on various odd jobs, and often sleeps in abandoned buildings. One day, Daisy receives a mysterious phone call and takes a cab to Queenie's house. Child Protective Services has found Benjamin, now appearing as a minor, living in an abandoned building in New Orleans. They traced Daisy through the numerous references in a sense that he should know her. In the present, Daisy narrates that she moved into Queenie's house to care for Benjamin. We see Benjamin regress further, now a difficult 7-year-old displaying clear signs of Alzheimer's. He throws a tantrum because he doesn't remember eating breakfast. With the patience and love of a grandmother, Daisy then shares that he feels as though he's lived an entire life but cannot remember any of it. On another day, he ends up on the roof, and Daisy gently talks him down. As time passes, Benjamin continues to regress, first to a toddler and then finally to an infant cradled in Daisy's elderly arms. Daisy narrates that one day, Benjamin gave her one last knowing look before passing away peacefully in her embrace. Exhausted by the story, Daisy and her daughter, Caroline, share a sense of relief and closure as the long-hidden truths of Benjamin's life come to light. Meanwhile, Hurricane Katrina draws dangerously close to the hospital, momentarily diverting Caroline's attention from her mother. Daisy gazes out the window and sees a hummingbird approach before it flies away into the storm. The camera pulls back, revealing hospital staff rushing to evacuate patients and transport medical supplies. A montage follows, showing memorable characters from Benjamin's life, narrated by Benjamin himself. The film ends with the hurricane's floodwaters rushing into a storeroom, where the old clock, still ticking backward, sits submerged. Thanks for watching.